Hello and welcome. Looks like everything's running up and smoothly, so I'll introduce and get the stream started. Hello and welcome to, as you can tell by the title, it's the FRL Season 16 teams, teammates, and cheeky predictions at the end. And yeah, it will be interesting looking through who's in obviously which teams. Obviously, as a driver, always want to be in your favourite team, and it's quite interesting. Some of the pairings, obviously, for F1, 2, and 3, and obviously the teammate pairings, which is, if anything, more interesting to see who can maybe win the constructors. And yeah, it looks like 10 people watching. No issues, it seems as though, with the audio or anything. So I guess we best get started. And without further ado, I think the next slide is the F1 grid. So let's see. Okay. There we go. And there's the teams for FRL F1. As you can see, some drivers are obviously going to be very happy or very sad straight away. But I think in this tier, if I'm not mistaken, Red Bull and McLaren and maybe Ferrari was quite highly wanted. So well done to all those pairings for getting the team you wanted. Hopefully everyone got the team they wanted. Obviously not everyone can, but hopefully most did, as many as possible. But as you can see, a grid which probably for FRL's history is maybe not as fast as previous seasons. Thinking back to season 14 when we had an absolutely ridiculously fast grid. Whereas now it seems as though there's more midfield cars, but the grid does seem a lot closer. There's a lot of drivers who have been F2 only a season or 2 or 3 ago. But just seeing comments coming in, some are happy, some are sad. Charlie being happy, Evo, or a fan of Evo, being very happy. But yeah, just looking. Obviously, you got Dundee and Pyro, who are in the Red Bull. Dundee had very poor attendance last season, so he's kind of like a new driver. And Pyro did just one race last season, and it was the very last race of the season. I might be mistaken in saying he won it, but he did very well, Pyro, so that's a decent pairing. We're going downwards from the left. We've got Mercedes with XD Paco, another new driver, but he didn't make many races last season. But Evil Zook always preaches he's a very fast driver, so it'll be interesting to see if he can maybe fight towards the top of the midfield. And then we've got Macho, obviously F2 champion in FRL, multiple F1 winner. But last season, obviously, his attendance was great. But if he can make the races and pull a few consistent races, he could be a championship contender. Evo and Watermelon, these two always good buddies, always seem to be teammates in whatever league they go to. They are at Ferrari, and hopefully it'll be good to see if they can have a good inter-team rivalry, because both those drivers seem to be fairly level on pace. It's hard to tell which one will finish ahead in a championship. Rocco and Flex are at McLaren, and obviously Rocco been in FRL a hell of a long time, well over 10 seasons, maybe less than that, but I think over 10 seasons. He's been here a while. Flex, a lot more recent, Only been here maybe 4 seasons or so. But yeah, Flex and Rocco, that'll also be another interesting pairing. I think Rocco, I might be wrong, but I think he beat Flex in the standings last season. But they were two which had very good attendance. So let's see this season if, with more competition, with a close midfield, if they can stay in that top five in the constructors. If both of those drivers can have a solid constructors result. And then you got two drivers next who have also been in FRL F1 several seasons, very experienced. You got obviously Pelly, who returns to FRL F1, probably where he's been most of his FRL seasons, maybe F2. But just as my alarm goes off, reminding me that I've got to do this stream. And then obviously you got who many probably don't know, as I always ramble on about, but you've got Med TC, who's obviously used to be SHZ name changer, who was an F1 esports driver. And then you've got obviously, as I said, Pelly alongside, and they'll be trying to carry themselves into that top five in the constructors, but it'll be quite difficult because obviously Pelly coming from F2 is not going to be the easiest for him pace wise. But and then you got the AlphaTauri pairing, which is looking very good. You got Zero versus in terms of the inter-team rivalry versus Jensen, but they'll be working together obviously to try and win the constructors, I imagine. As obviously Jensen making his return. Last time he raced in FRL, season 14, Montana beat him to the championship, but 2 seasons before that he was winning 2 championships, so he'll be looking for another championship to boot. Zero obviously won many constructors in FRL F1, trying to get another one with VSR Jensen. Hawk and Charlie, both FRL or FRL-E drivers, as the team used to be, but they're at Aston Martin. Quite an interesting pairing to see how Hawk and Charlie will do. Charlie, you'll see, coming from, I think it was F2, but he had spurts of good form, and then sometimes he maybe wasn't as fast as he would have liked to be, but in pre-season he went in F2 and he dominated. Maybe the competition wasn't on their best day, but Charlie, being one of the few drivers to be promoted to F1 after pre-season, and obviously Hawk there, I believe he got 3rd in the standings or 4th, I might be wrong. But had his best season of FRL last season. Can he keep it up? Going to be very difficult, but obviously hope he has the best season for himself as he can. And then Williams, once again, a very strong lineup there. Pepin, just at the bottom of the Williams graphic there. He's now joined CPI, so that makes it 3 CPI drivers, myself, Zero, and Pepin. So interesting to see if that improves his performance at all, or because at the moment he's on a very good roll. 1 F2. Dominated F2. See if he. I doubt he'll dominate F1 because obviously F1 top tier of FRL, never easy to even score points, is tough because of how close this midfield looks. But I think Pepin will take a few podiums this season. And then obviously alongside him you got the reigning F1 champion FRL Lou, who's going to be trying to retain his title and maybe adds on another constructors. Last season Lou and Hawk, I think it was at Williams, so Lou remains at Williams and he's paired up with Pepin. And then you've got in the Alfa Romeo, you've got Mercaletto, a new driver. I say new driver, he only made 1 race like Pyro last season, but that was in F2, unlike Pyro, which was F1. Mercaletto obviously did, I think he took pole and possibly DNF'd in a race, but his pace looked good. And he didn't turn up to pre-season, but hopefully he'll make as many races as he can, and he'll probably be once again one of those drivers right in the middle of that mid-pack, fighting with drivers I imagine like Evo, Watermelon, Hawk, Charlie, and interesting to see how he does. And Baz, never been FRL F1, but here he is, going to be trying his best to try and remain in FRL F1 because the competition's very tough, so it's either sink or swim for a lot of these drivers. But hopefully he does as well as he can. And then, of course, you got the Haas pairing with Ryan and myself. And Ryan won 1 race last season in F2. Myself and Ryan obviously both been in FRL F1, I think it's season 14. So, yeah, a lot of these drivers on the grid have been in F1 before. There's just looking through the grid. I'd hardly say Pyro's been F1 before because he only made one race. So I'd say Pyro, XD Paco, Evo, Watermelon. I think as Michaeletto, Pepin, Baz. So to be fair, that's actually quite maybe half the grid who've only been F2 or not made many races in F1. But then the other half's very experienced in FRL F1. So it'll be interesting to see the dynamic, to see if maybe the more experienced drivers do well in FRL F1, or maybe some of the more newcomers do better. So it will be interesting to see the newcomer awards in FRL F1 when we get round to the season 16 awards. But without further ado, quickly name the reserve list and then we'll get on to the F2 lineup. In the reserves, you have got Henki Opdefi, if I pronounce that right. You got SR Keke. SR have now disbanded, so not sure what that's going to be in due course. CPI Chris, another CPI driver. Taeyun Dekip, recently signed by QRT. Mentos X55, ex-QRT driver, but also been in F1, FRL F1 before. And one Marco, who did, whose pace was very good last season in FRL F1, but just a lot of DNFs. So that is the F1 grid, and now we will move on to FRL F2 to see where all the drivers. Again, I'm just looking through the comments at the same time, probably shouldn't do that, but see if all the drivers get what the teams they want. See if this works. Quickly. 3, 2, 1. There you go. I'm glad I didn't click 2 times, otherwise that would be F3 and it'd spoil it all. But FRL F2, as you can see, a lot of familiar faces. Some you may, let's start with some quickly, you may not know. Football Nitro, FRL F4 last season, did very well. He's joining FRL F2. Axel Bakker, completely new driver. Interesting to see how he does. So Haas, quite a new team or pairing. Kostya, I didn't fill out Kostya's name completely, so sorry to Kostya. But he's come from FRL F3. A lot of these drivers have come from FRL F3. Obviously due to us going from 4 tiers to 3 tiers. But I believe that is pretty much it in terms of new drivers. But starting with Red Bull, we've got an all-Belgian pairing with Arno 557 and Ruben 007659. 2 Belgians. See if they can do as well as maybe Belgium will do in a World Cup, we'll see. But Arno obviously very strong, very quick driver. In terms of the TTC Centre, he was right at the top of all these drivers on the grid. So if you were putting it by time trials, he should win a championship. But that's obviously not how FRL works. And then you got Ruben last season, who had some very good results. But then sometimes he just completely was off the pace. So he's a bit hit or miss, Ruben. And then in Mercedes, you got Kostya and Evil Zook. Kostya, last season F3, he was around midfield. So moving up to F2, it's not going to be easy for Kostya. But he'll obviously try his best to get used to it. Every season at the moment, he's gone up a tier. So if he could make it to FRL F1, it would be an absolutely stunning result for everyone watching him. But yeah, Kostya obviously F2 now. And Evil Zook, once again, another driver, moving from F4 to F3, back all the way to F2. No, he started his debut in F2, and he's done a full 360 back to F2. And Evil Zook will try his best, obviously, to maybe, I don't know, secure constructors would be nice for Mercedes. But interesting where all these drivers will fit, because there's a few F2 drivers here, and there's a few F3 drivers, so it's hard to tell where everyone will be. But you'll see later on with the predictions where I've had to predict where everyone will be, or chosen to predict. But moving on to Ferrari, you've got Sen and Sphinx, rapid pairing in terms of 1 lap pace. Sphinx, awful in terms of the race, always DNFing. And then Sen obviously second, I believe he was, last season in F3, but he never really looked like he was going to touch Berra, as his pace came a bit too late on. But then in the McLarens, you got Castine Bullboy with third in F3 last season, so just behind Sen, Mr. Consistent himself. And you've got Casti, who he's always sometimes fast, sometimes slow, but last season he had a decent improvement, so we'll be looking coming back to F2, a tier where he's usually done quite well. Hopefully he can spring a few interesting results and maybe obviously take a win or two. That would be good for Casti, the Scotsman. An all-British pairing in McLaren, the British team in Woking, so that's good to see. Tex-Rex and Ilsano in Alpine. Tex-Rex obviously F3 last season. Interesting to see how he does. He was lower midfield, I dare say, or just bang in the midfield in F3 last season. So maybe one of the slower drivers in this tier, but he also, as always, will try his best to be aggressive and fight his way through the grid. Neil Zano, Mr. Inconsistent, unlike Ballboy. He's in F2, but he's probably in a tier where he should feel quite at home. If he can be consistent, Neil Zano with his one-lap pace is a menace to be reckoned with, but that rarely happens. But hopefully Neil Zano can do well for himself, as it's awfully painful to see him spinning multiple times in a race, but hopefully he can do well. Then AlphaTauri, probably the scariest pairing. If you are any of the drivers other than AlphaTauri, you're looking at this AlphaTauri pairing like it's definitely going to cause you problems. Sadio Mano, obviously, I believe he took 2 wins last season in F3, and Berra took about 5. Absolute domination from Berra last season, and he missed 2 races. I think he had a 40-point gap to the next car, so if he made those 2 races, it could have been 60. So Berra absolutely dominated F3, moving to F2, going to try and win another championship. But this season for Berra, I think it's going to be a lot more difficult. You've got some F2 drivers there who should mix it up. And you've got some drivers who were with him last season who are obviously going to be learning from the mistakes and going to be trying to find and exploit Berra's weaknesses. And then obviously Sadio Mano, as I said, 2 wins, very rapid driver, been in FRL a while. He's going to try and fancy probably constructors. AlphaTauri definitely the favourites for constructors. And then you got Aston Martin, which is Rackland and Michael Van Dongen. These two were Aston Martin last season in F3, always been in FRL for as long as I've been here. They've always turned up week on week, very good attendance, and they always seem to be, as of recently, they seem to be top of the midfield. Michael Van Dongen's won an F3 championship, but Rackland's never won a title. Maybe a constructors, but not from my memory. But Aston Martin, they'll be smack bang in the midfield probably. Rackland, Michael Van Dongen, week in, week out, will be attending. So it'll be interesting to see how that all-Dutch pairing will do in the British green car. And then another British team, Williams, Cobra Bulow and Edzak. 2 drivers from F2, stay in F2, so not promoted, but stay in F2. Bulow, obviously, very fast. Won F3, I think it was 2 or 3 seasons ago. But after that massive success, he's been a bit underwhelming. But staying in F2 this season, I think on time trials, he was one of the fastest, up there with Arno. And he's obviously been in this tier, and now all the F3 drivers coming up, you would fancy he's going to be, rather than fighting the midfield last season, he's going to be right at the top there, fighting for podiums. If you can just keep it on track, not make too many mistakes, stay consistent. That's the thing with all these drivers in the grid, apart from maybe some like Berra. If they can be consistent, then it's going to be very exciting title fight. But the problem is not enough drivers are on this grid probably consistent. But a driver who is Edzak, pairing up with Bulow. And last season got plenty of points results. I think he was only 7th or 6th in the standings, Edzak, but for FRLF2, considering the grid, that wasn't too bad at all. So this season, Edzak's going to be definitely in qualifying higher, because obviously all his competition last season gone up a tier, so now he's versing F3 drivers. So let's see how Edzak can do in another season for the Latvian in FRL. And then you've got obviously Alfa Romeo, you've got Bobby and Jesse, probably the dark horse for the championship. Bobby last season challenged for the title. I think around Hungary he was really looking like he could get his teeth into the title, but obviously that never came to anything. As Bobby, I think, had a few DNFs, a few crashes, had a race ban even, which didn't help him at all. But an aggressive driver, always looking to get the elbows out, will be hopefully a good season for Bobby. And then Jesse, from FRL F4 all the way to FRL F2, like Football Nitro, he's going to be really trying to do his best. And obviously Jesse, I think, well, I know in a 5-lappers he was very fast, but 5-lappers don't mean anything. So I'm not sure how he got on in pre-season, but Jesse, when he can hook up the lap, is very fast. His race pace, if it can be worked on, Jesse, it will be an interesting drive to see how he can do in FRL F2. But the drives around Jesse, definitely not going to make it easy for him if he is going to try and fight for podiums and wins. And yeah, interesting to see that Alfa Romeo pairing. Hopefully they can do well in the constructors and put a title fight up maybe with AlphaTauri and some other teams. And then lastly, you got Football Nitro and Axel Bakker. As I said, Axel Bakker, new driver, so don't know anything about him. And Football Nitro won a couple races last season in FRL F4 in the Red Bull, and he's now moving right to the bottom to Haas, but it is on equal, so he should be at no disadvantage. But hopefully he does well and tries to get in amongst that grid and hopefully score some points and not get the wooden spoon too many times. Then the reserves, you got Glowstick, Mike PKF1, a new reserve, Arise returning back to FRL, Smolly very fast, but he is a reserve for Smolly. But if Smolly does get a seat early on, he could be a contender for the title. So that's an interesting reserve, as he opted for full time. But I think he had a ban last season, 2 seasons ago in FRL's 14th season. But he has now got that overturned after serving his season ban. So see how Smolly can do if he does get a seat. Even as a reserve, he can be very fast. But this grid should have good attendance. But without further ado, still got a good 16 viewers watching the stream, so that's good to see. We'll be moving on to F3, which Oliver is in the comments, so he'll be looking forward to seeing it appear in just a few seconds. Just going to get it started, but FRL F3 coming up in 3, 2, 1. There you go. FRL F3, nice looking grid. Always credit to Jensen for the graphics. He did them a season ago, looking absolutely fine. And you've got VIP GTA Gamer and Yuri, all FRL pairing, all Dutch pairing, all very fast pairing. VIP 1 FRL F4, so they got a champion at Red Bull. So that's really going to help them in terms of mounting a title fight. VIP definitely going to be a title rival. And Yuri constantly improving on wheel nurses. He's going to be scary fast if he can keep improving at this rate. So Red Bull definitely going to be looking to, just like in real life, try to dominate, maybe get a few race wins. Red Bull looking a scary pairing. And then you got Frankie Monty and Oliver. Frankie stays in F3, one of a few drivers to stay in F3. Oliver obviously returning. I think he's got a kid now, so hopefully he'll be able to have enough time to practice. But obviously with the kid as well. But Oliver obviously part of FRL, and he was FRL F3 when he was last here, I believe. And he was sometimes he got a few decent results. I remember him matching Bullboy a lot of the time when they were teammates. So hopefully Oliver, if he can keep that up, he should have no problem at all being right at the top of that midfield, or maybe even being in the top 3 or 4 teams. So interesting to see how he does with Frankie Monty, the Italian driver, obviously Frankie Monty. And then you got Ferrari, Mr. Merckx and Leslie. Mr. Merckx, originally known as Dittis Luke, Mr. Daily Spin Zook, as Bullboy calls him. He FRL F4 last season, very entertaining in terms of qualifying very high and having no race pace, making a lot of interesting overtakes for other drivers on him, not on others, sadly, for Mr. Merckx. And he's a very fast driver on the 1 lap pace if he can equal it with the race pace. Once again, this tier looking probably stronger than last season's F4 grid, because once again we're going to 3 tiers now, so no more FRL F4, so this is the bottom grid. But see how he can do. Leslie is being paired up with Mr. Merckx. Didn't see much from last season, but I believe he did get a few points finishes. It'll be tough for him to get many points finishes with this grid, because you have got many good drivers, just like the McLaren pairing, where you've got Scar and O'Steven. O'Steven just missing out on a title in FRL F4. But however, he's maybe got a chance in this grid. Probably not the grid's very fast. And still got JB on a grid, which is going to cause O'Stephen problems. But he's could get constructors if Scar shows his pace, which seems to have gone missing for multiple seasons after filing a complaint of a missing pace. But NSX Scar obviously coming down from F2, one of few drivers to actually get demoted in FRL. But Scar, Mr. Inconsistent probably. DNF the last race of the season in Brazil. He's got McLaren now, and he's with Mr. Consistent himself, O'Stephen. So hopefully he'll be learning from the wise man and maybe getting a few good points finishes. And as Scar's going up against drivers he should be able to beat. So hopefully Scar will fight right at the top of that midfield. And who knows, maybe even get a race win, which would be absolutely brilliant. I mean, O'Stephen and JB did it last season, so who can't do it? Stoken and Mertena in Alpine. Stoken, very fast driver, only came in for Brazil. I think he took pole, very rapid. Mertena took multiple poles. Everyone forgets how well he did in last season in F4. He's going to be in F3 right at the top of that midfield, or fighting for the title even, we'll have to see. And then moving swiftly onwards, we've got AlphaTauri, we've got Janzu and Cryptic returning once again to FRL. He was F4 last time he was here, but he's returning to be F3 now. Very fast on a one lap, but once again lacking consistency in the race. As you can tell, a lot of these drivers, as you go down the tiers, there's better one lap pace and lack of race pace being probably the key words which I keep saying. You got Janzu, who I believe is a Finnish driver, one of a few Finnish drivers we have in FRL, but Janzu 96, he's going to be paired up with Cryptic. Interesting pairing. If they can both do their best, they could be maybe fighting in that midfield, but otherwise it could be quite an ugly season for those two. Albert moving right from F2 down to F3, so another driver getting demoted. He never really looked like he was on the pace in FRL F2. It's now going down to F3. He should be well and truly fighting for wins and podiums, kind of a pace zone where he should be a lot more familiar with. And then he's being paired up with Paul. I believe Paul was in Aston Martin maybe a season or two ago in FRL F4 with, I think it was Humanoid, but Humanoid is now a reserve. But Paul returning to FRL, hopefully he can do well, and obviously wish him the best of luck in the season. It'll be good to see if he can do well for the Aston Martin team. And then you've got Williams, of course, with Your Idea, the Scotsman, and Ayrton on Fire, who I believe is Brazilian. Not by the name, I think he is Brazilian. Ayrton on Fire, completely new, but he had the slowest time trial time of anyone by quite a hefty margin. I'm not sure if he spun on the time trials or didn't, but there's a chance he could be F1 pace, but he just couldn't be bothered with the time trials and did spin. So Ayrton on Fire, don't be surprised if he gets a podium because he messed up his time trials. So someone to look out for sure. Your Idea, very consistent in F4 last season. Moving to F3, he's going to be looking to get right in amongst it with some ex-F3 drivers and even F2 drivers. So, I mean, if he can beat, for example, someone like Scar, it tells obviously, puts out a statement that he can maybe make a step up to F2 next season. But Your Idea will do his best shot, so will Ayrton, making his debut season in FRL. And then Alfa Romeo, you've got Lewis Kerosene and Gamer Banana. Lewis Kerosene, obviously Brit, and then Gamer Banana, I believe Dutch. Gamer Banana's gone to, I think, Wheel maybe no assist, or he's definitely gone to Wheel, so his pace has fallen off, so he is in F3. But in no time he'll be back up to speed, and probably O'Stephen will be calling for him to be F2 pace. Pardon. And then you've got obviously Lewis Kerosene, Lewis Kentucky Fried Chicken. He's going to be looking obviously to do his best possible races in FRL F3. He's obviously got a teammate who seems quite fast, so hopefully he'll be learning from him. But Lewis, we're seeing bits and bobs of him. Obviously he did take, I think, the first ever FRL pole in FRL's F4 Season 1 Bahrain, where Lewis was second, another Lewis. But that's basically the highlight of his FRL career, so hopefully he can do a bit better this season. And then obviously we've got the reigning champions in Haas. It's JB and Brookie. Last season they were in F4, so father and son will be trying to. It's not actually defending the title because they don't have a title to defend because there is no F4 this season. They're going to be trying to gain a title in F3. But Brookie, very fast, won pre-season. He was originally put in F2, but after consideration, he's placed back in F3. But expect Brookie to be right at the front of that grid. And JB, with the consistency, if drivers like VIP and little Brookie make mistakes and struggle, he will, JB, have no hesitation in taking a title because he's so consistent and fast, as we saw in Brazil. When he really wants to practice, when he's in for a title, he will do his best to get it. So any sniff of that and JB will be right on it. But very decent grid. You got Pippo and Humanoid as a reserve, 2 FRL drivers. Humanoid back down to a reserve, sadly, and Pippo, once again, I think he's taking refereeing courses, so that's why he's down to a reserve. But still got 12 people watching, so I will move on to the predictions, which always not everyone's going to agree with, but interesting to see what everyone thinks of them. Here are my predictions for FRL F1 Season 16. Once again, very nice graphic from, Jensen doing the logos and the numbers, but I set it up in this way. It looks quite nice, I think. This is my predictions for FRL Season 16, believe it or not. Jensen is obviously first. I've put, for obvious reasons, Jensen's returning. I do think he'll beat Lou, the reigning champion, as Jensen's come a long way since he was last in FRL, joining VSR, winning, I think, WR Tier 1. Very fast driver. But Lou is as well. So Lou, that will be a very close title fight. And then you've got some drivers who, for certain reasons, probably won't be in a title fight. But you've got Metisi, very consistent, but doesn't put in an awful amount of practice because he's too busy drinking alcohol. You've got Pepin, who's recently moved up to F1 from F2, being a champion. So I think it will be straight at the front of that F1 grid. And I definitely think he'll be top 5 in my predictions, and he's 4th here. Macho 5th. His lack of attendance, I think, will undo him. And his lack of motivation, even though he's an F2 champion, I don't think he'll do enough to win the title. And then you got this is probably, as you can see how our colour coded it, the rest of the top 10 is Rocco, Mr. Consistent. Enough said about him, you should know him by now. Pyro in 7th, only made 1 race, but once again, an attendance issue I've put him further down. I'm not too sure how many races he'll be making. However, he could be well and truly right up there fighting for the title, Pyro, if he is serious about winning an FRL, if he enjoys the league and whatnot. And then Mucarletto, maybe put him a bit too high, considering he's only done 1 race in F2. And he was at the front, but he did DNF, so he could be very inconsistent. But I put him 8th. And then you've got XD Paco, once again, with that attendance issue, could be an issue. But he is 9th, I've put. And then 10th, as always, I think I only done 2 predictions, but both, I think I put Zero around the same position. And in the championships, he's always finishing 5th, 6th, 7th. In the standings, I put Zero just inside the top 10, just like his teammate in AlphaTauri. I put Zero 10th. And then the lower midfield, or the bottom of the pack, whatever you want to call it, I got Flex there in the McLaren. A few places behind his teammate Rocco. I've got obviously the Haas pairing of Ryan and myself. I think Ryan will probably pit me, trying to be as humble as possible, unlike usual. And then you've got RL Dundee, who's very fast on our time trials, but awfully consistent. And also, once again, his attendance last season warrants no expectations of him. Why do we give him a C? Maybe that's up for debate. He's 14th. Evo is just closing in an Alfa Romeo Ferrari sandwich of the Aston Martins. He's in 15th. I think it'll be an alright season for him, but not a spectacular one, as he's still trying to get used to no ABS. And then we got Hawk behind. For some reasons, I'm not sure whether I should say, but Mr. Hawk, I put him 16th. I very fast, but I think some issues will obviously get in his way, calendar-wise. And then Charlie in 17th, just behind T-Hawk. I think Charlie will have a very tough time in FRL F1. I don't think he thinks he's FRL F1. Now, I don't think that'll help him, but if Charlie can really live up to it, I think he can shoot right up that grid, for sure. And then I've got Baz in 18th. Not very consistent, although in pre-season he was very fast. Although he did have, I think, an incident which pushed him down the grid. But Buzz in 18th, Watermelon in 19th. Watermelon in 19th, once again, maybe that's completely wrong. He's never been FRL F1, but I do think he'll struggle this season. Who knows, though? You never know with Watermelon. He could be right up there. Don't think he will ever fight for the championship. But hopefully he proves me wrong and he'll be right up there in the midfield, upper midfield maybe. And I've sadly given a wooden spoon in the red colour to Mr. Pelly. Not a lot of consistency for Pelly. Maybe could have been F2 this season. But either way, I think Pelly in the Alpine is going to be quite the opposite to MedTC. But hopefully Pelly once again proves me wrong and is right up that grid. Everyone loves Pelly. Be great to see him up there. Here are the constructors I've put as well. You thought I'd take this and slack off. I have also done the constructors as well as the drivers. Looking absolutely brilliant from me, of course. But I put Williams top, obviously, as I said. Lou and Pepin, if you want to look back, I put them top 4. Pepin, F2 champion. Lou, F1 champion. Why won't they win the championship? And if they win the constructors, it'll be Williams' second time, 2 times in a row, winning the constructors. Everyone loves to win FRL in a Williams. It's an odd phenomenon. The car is obviously very slow in real life, but everyone loves to win races in it for some reason. I put Jensen as 02nd. I think Jensen will get maybe 1 title, but I don't think he'll get the constructors. I think 0 will miss out, hence. I just don't think that pairing's probably equal enough to challenge Lou and Pepin. I've got third as down as Macho and XD Paco. Once again, 2 drivers who we don't know loads about. There's not loads of certainty they'll be turning up and smashing in top 5s race after race. So I've put Mercedes third, like in real life. See if they can get third. Unlike real life, I've put McLaren 4th and Alpine 5th. I've put Rocco and Flex, very consistent pairing, very well-rounded pairing. Put them 4th. They're just 2 decent drivers. LFR Flex, no more is LFR, so he should just be Flex maybe now. And obviously Rocco, ex-Relentless driver, if you're wondering. He's going to be 4th. Just very fast drivers. Rocco won pre-season and Flex did decently in pre-season, but he should be better. I put McLaren 4th. MedTC and Pelly, for obvious reasons, with Pelly being bottom in the drivers, equals it out. Bottom plus top equals middle. Pelly and MedTC put them right bang in the middle. Just pipping 6th, which is myself and Ryan, or Ryan and myself, and in the Haas. I think will not be in the top 10. 2 kind of F2 merchants, really. Not really ever doing much in F1. Last time we were F1, didn't do that well. I think we came bottom in the standings. It was pretty awful in terms of constructors. But I do think we'll improve quite a bit and come 6th. All the midfield cars from probably 3rd down to 9th, maybe 10th. It's so close to cool. Just the top 2, I think they're a tier above the rest. But moving on to 7th, Pyro and Dundee. Lack of consistency. Maybe that's a bit too low considering the drivers. I put Pyro fairly high up, but Dundee and Pyro, I don't think they'll do that well. And then you got Baz and Michaletto. I think Michaletto and Baz, maybe one of them will do well, but the other won't. So I think they'll pull them down to 8th. And then you've got the Ferrari pairing. Eva and Watermelon, 2 drivers who were F2 last season. Very quick in F2, but I don't think they'll do it in F1. I think they'll be 9th. But hopefully for them, they can once again prove me wrong. And the all FRL pairing in the Aston Martin, Hawk and Charlie. The Aston Martin is not a great car, I don't think, historically in FRL F1. Since it's obviously been in the F1 games, it's never really served anyone very well. Hawk and Charlie, I think they'll be bottom. If it was F2, I think they'd be right at the top, but just because it's F1 and how close the competition is, maybe thinking about it, maybe put them a bit low, but oh well. That is the constructors. And we will now move on to the F2 drivers. There we go. 11 watching. Still good to see. Hopefully that looks all good to you guys. But I've put Berra top. I've put Sen second. I think Barrow will win the F2 Drivers' Championship because of his incredible consistency. I put Sen second. Once again, I think he'll be a runners-up in F-Row. I think he'll really hate that, but I think he'll be second. Bulow, once again, as I said, and Elzak, both in that top 5 XF2 drivers. I think they'll be right up there. This F2 prediction is a bit easier because obviously a lot of these drivers been there. It's basically the F3 drivers from last season, so not a lot of changing to do, not a lot of new drivers. I put Bobby fourth. I think he, as long as he doesn't get a season ban, which is a big if, I think he'll be fourth. I think he'll get some decent points, but I don't think he'll win a championship. But still, it would be a good step for Bobby being F2, moving up a tier. And then I got Saudi Mano making it an AlphaTauri 1-6. Very fast driver, as I said. I think the Belgian will be 6th. Saudi Mano, very fast driver. He'll probably say he's going to be right up there fighting for the title, but we thought that last season and it didn't come true. So I put Saudi Mano down at 6th. Arno, 7th. Very fast driver on one lap, but in terms of attendance, and I don't know, he's never really lived up to his true pace. So I put Arno down as 7th. That's quite a safe prediction, I'd say. Bullboy maybe a bit low in 8th. Probably a bit low. Maybe Bullboy will be a lot higher than that. But Bullboy in 8th, Mr. Consistent. I think he'll be consistent, but I don't think he'll get enough big points finishes to overtake the likes of Arno and Sadio, the two Belgians. So I put him in 8th. A lot of trust putting Jesse in 9th, ahead of Evil Zook in 10th. He's seriously completely active, so they'll be analysing this. But Jesse in 9th, very fast driver on one lap, very fast driver in general. So I think he'll back it up with some good results. And Evil Zook in 10th. Last season he was F3, returning to F2. This is tier-wise, I think this will be his best result in F4L season-wise. I think he'll sneak into the top 10. I don't think he'll get any higher just because of that. Very consistent last season, to be fair, but the competition this season is quite ridiculous. You've got some drivers who could have been F1, maybe if they could have made Tuesday. So this grid is going to be tough for Zook, so I think he'll just about break into the top 10. And he'll be ahead of the two Aston Martins of Racklet and Michael van Dongen. Racklet usually finishes above Michael van Dongen. Don't think there needs to be much explaining there, but I do think they'll drop down the standings compared to usual. Usually they are top of the midfield, so maybe that's a bit low for them. But Ruben in 13th, once again, not very good consistent wise, either winning or DNFing. I think Ruben will be unlucky 13th. Casti I've put in 14th. I think he will be a few places behind Ball Boy, but he could get a few good results. Hopefully he proves me wrong and is hopefully right at the top there. But Casti, I think, will be 14th. I put Sphinx in 15th. Once again, lack of consistency for Sphinx. I have no trust he will finish a race, let alone get any points or even win a podium or win a race. So I put him down at 15th, a Ferrari driver. Axel Bakker, new driver, fairly safe. Put him right near the bottom for the Haas. Not much needs to be said about that. Not much is known about him. 17th, Kostya. Not only have I insulted him by not doing his name properly, I've also put him right down at 17th for Mercedes. But last season he was 12th in F3, so I think it's fair that he won't be in that midfield. Sometimes he showed very good pace in F4, but now 2 seasons on in F2, it's a completely different ball game. I think he'll struggle. Nils Arno missed a lack of consistency. I think he'll be 18th. Hopefully he finds motivation from this and practices quite a bit, but I think he'll be right near the bottom there. And Tex Rex, a driver who's quite aggressive, as well as struggled in F3 last season. I think he'll be just missing out on the wooden spoon. And the driver from F4, I think Football Nitro will take the wooden spoon. Not much needs to be said. Football Nitro, obviously, from F4 last season, is going to struggle going 2 tiers up. But I put Jesse 9th, however, so maybe Football Nitro and Jesse should be closer. But that is the drivers. Here is the constructors. Bulow and Edzak, as I said. I think the two F2 drivers who will stay in F2. I think they will win the Constructors for Williams. I think it'll be another title for Williams in FRL. I think they'll take 2 titles at least. We'll see with F3 if I believe they'll take 3. But I put Berra and Sadio second, which some may say is a bit stupid considering Berra is so quick and consistent as well, and Sadio's not a bad wingman at all to win a Constructors, but I think they'll miss out. I think Bulow and Edzak have that good dynamic between one lap pace and consistency. So hopefully always that Williams pairing, one of them will be in the points. And then you got third, Bobby and Jesse. I think Bobby and Jesse will form a good partnership, being teammates. Jesse can do well, and I think Bobby will do well. Maybe it's a bit high for them because the drivers behind them have been there, done it quite a lot. So maybe that's a bit optimistic, but I'll put Alfa Romeo in third. Fourth, the main team Ferrari, I think, will be there. I think Sen, despite coming second in the driver's standings, I think he'll come fourth in the Constructors because Sphinx, I just don't think will score enough points. Fifth, just inside the top 10, I put McLaren, Bulbo and Casti, the all-British pairing in a British car, as I said before. I don't think they'll be challenging for the title. I just don't think they have the raw speed in that car. But I do think they'll be inside the top 10. Sixth, just missing out, Rackler and Michael van Dongen. Not what they used to be in terms of they used to be right up there fighting for podiums, whatever tier they were. But now they have kind of diminished from top of the midfield to lower midfield is where I think they'll be. And then seventh, Red Bull, the all Belgian pairing, I think will be down in seventh. I think Ruben's lack of consistency and Arno's he's got very good pace, but I don't think his attendance will be too good. I'll put them down in seventh, way lower than of course in real life. And then I've got Mercedes in eighth. I think Mercedes or C, will do very well, I think, in F2. But I think Kostya will struggle and pull the team down in eighth in the standings. But it's quite close in that sixth to ninth area. It could well go anyway. However, 9th and 10th I think are quite easy to call. Axel Bakker, know nothing about him, so he could not turn up or could be very inconsistent. But I put him right down there in 9th, along with Football Nitro, who I believe will get the wooden spoon. He's a fast driver, but in F2 it's going to be a different ball game for him. And then in 10th, Nils Arno, Mr. Not Very Consistent, and obviously Tex Rex. I just don't think they'll be able to score the points in Alpine. And moving on to FRL F3. Here we go, very new graphic, looking very nice. As you can see, straight away, 2 Haas cars in the top 3. I think Brookie will be title. I think JB, the champion from last season in F4, I think he will be third. I think VIP will be second. VIP, a champion as well. You got 2 champions in that top 3, but the one who isn't a current champion, being Brookie, I think will become a champion. I think his performance in pre-season has solidified my belief Brookie will win FRL F3. As I said, VIP champion, JB champion, they're all very fast in that top 3. JB not very fast, but very consistent in the race. I mean, he's very fast in the race, but qualifying is not his speciality, but points are scored in the race, so JB put him third. Frankie Monti in fourth. Once again, a driver who's staying in his tier. As always, with drivers staying in their tier, I think he's going to do quite well. O'Stephen going down 3 places. I think O'Stephen will not fight for the title. I think he'll be down in 5th in the McLaren. And then in the Alpine sandwich from 6th to 9th, I've got Mertener, once again, very fast driver. He's going to be up there, higher midfield, fast. I've got Albert, scum down from F2. If he can maybe avoid a few incidents and put together a good season, I think he'll be 7th. And then I got Yuri. After hyping him up so much, I've probably put him a bit lower than you would have thought. I put him down in 8th, so with his Red Bull teammate in 2nd. And then rounding off the Alpine sandwich, the baguettes, I've got Stoken in 8th. Or Stoken 8. in ninth place for Alpine. Very fast on one lap. I think he's got the passion for FL. He will put in the practice, and I think he'll be in that top 10. And then Oliver making his return to FL. I just don't maybe think he'll have the practice time to really put in solid performances. I think he'll be sneaking in the top 10, but I don't think he'll be lower midfield, but I do think he'll be scraping into the top 10 in the standings. And then below Oliver, you've got 11th, Your Idea. Quite consistent, but it's a very tough competition for Your Idea this season compared to last season in F4. Game of Banana, no assists will hurt him early on. He could well move tiers, so 12th is probably a safe option. Scar in 13th. I think maybe this season he'll struggle, but if he stays in the same tier, maybe he'll push on for the title, but I don't think this season he will be anywhere near the title. Scar just getting used to the tier, although he could maybe put a surprise and fight for the title. Just as fast as Steve, and just not there consistency wise, as he's 8 places below his teammate. Mr. Merckx, I've got there in 14th, making it an AlphaTauri Ferrari sandwich. Mr. Merckx, Janzu, Cryptic and Leslie, they're all, for various reasons, I mean, they're all truly F4 drivers, but I think in F3, I do think they will struggle a bit. Mr. Merckx, obviously, usually dropping down places lap 1, and then Janzu obviously just did quite well in F4 last season, but I think he'll struggle in F3. Cryptic, not very consistent enough to what he should be really expecting given his 1 lap pace. Leslie didn't really show enough in F4 last season to warrant a top 10, so I put him right down there in 17th. Lewis KRFC, attendance, driving, DNFs, I think he'll be down in 18th for Alfa Romeo. And Paul's got balls. I think it might be a bit of a depressing season for Paul. He's got very tough competition. Scoring points is going to be tough for Paul. So I think Paul will be 19th. And I put Ayrton on fire, the new driver, with awful time trials, but he could be very fast. I'll put him 20th. There are the constructors. I have got Haas. Just looking through the comments. I got Haas with Brookie and JB in first. I think they'll win another constructors together. This time a tier above F4, so I think they'll do very well. And then I've got in second, I've got VIP and Yuri, the all FRL pairing. I think VIP, I put him second in the standings, and I put Yuri 8th. They're very fast, and they will go head to head with Haas. It'll be very entertaining to see who will win that. Shame I'm obviously not commentating on it, but that will be very exciting to see who wins Red Bull versus Haas. But I think it will go Haas. And then third, I've got Frankie and Oliver. Obviously, Oliver and Frankie, 2 ex-F3 drivers. They're going to do well. They're going to be third. And then fourth, I've got Alpine with Merton and Stoken. Merton, as I said, top of the midfield, should do well. Stoken, once again, very fast on 1 lap. Did well in F4 in terms of making a good impression. I think he'll be fourth. And like real life, so actually this is very similar to real life with 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th. Almost the same as real life. But, and maybe 6th even. I've got McLaren in 5th. Just inside the top 10. I've got Scar and O'Stephen. I think Scar and O'Stephen, all British pairing in a British car once again. Although Scar will not call himself British, he probably maybe Scottish. But I think Scar and O'Stephen will balance each other out, the benefits and losses in terms of that pairing. But O'Stephen, after sort of challenging for the constructors in F4 last season, I think he'll have to settle for 5th. And Scar, I think he'll be quite higher than normal in the constructors. Scar, I think he'll be 5th. So that might motivate him in the drivers for a decent constructors result. So I'll put them 5th. Maybe a bit high, 6th. I'll put Paul. I'll put 19th in the drivers. And I'll put Albert there. Albert, though, he's from FRL F2 last season, going down a tier. He should be able to put in decent performances. So I think he'll carry Paul right on his back to 6th and drop him off nicely. And then Williams, we've got Uri and Ayrton on fire. Ayrton on fire, I think, will score virtually no points. I think Uri will keep chipping away at that at the points, keep sneaking in those 9th and 8th places, and I think he'll get them a solid 7th place in the Constructors. For 8th, I've got obviously the AlphaTauri pairing, which will be interesting to see who wins the AlphaTauri pairing, although I think it'll go Jansu's way, as I said in the drivers. I think AlphaTauri will struggle. I think it'll be 8th. Yeah. And then I just don't think R7 Cryptic is maybe as fast as he used to be back in F4, and now in F3 it's going to be tough for him. And obviously Jansu, the Finnish driver, will be a very tough season for him because the competition's obviously massively improved. The 9th, we've got Alfa Romeo with Gaming Banana and Lewis KRFC. I don't think they'll be anywhere near the top 10, but give them a season, both of the drivers, if they can have good attendance, they could well be there. It's not a massive pace difference between 9th and 5th. I just think it's the consistency and just Stephen comparing to Game of Banana. I think he's much more faster and much more consistent, but who knows? Game of Banana, once he gets used to that wheel, he could be absolutely rapid. And then last, I've got the Scarlet Red Ferrari finishing in the red relegation zone. Mr. Merckx and Leslie, I just don't think it will come together for them. I think it will be quite a depressing time for the Scuderia in FRL F3. I think they will be last. And now, that is it. Thank you for watching. All 7 viewers who stuck with me at the end to listen to my annoying voice, thank you very much. 56 minutes long stream, very long stream. So a lot of waffling from me. If you hate my predictions, vent them in my Discord DMs if you know my Discord. Bunty1358, I think it is. Have a go at me, rinse my predictions, I don't mind. Tell me where I went wrong. But we'll see if my predictions are close to what actually happens. I think the champions could well be spot on. But I hope you enjoyed the teams and teammates as well, obviously. Hopefully you got all, if you're an FRL driver watching, hopefully you got the team and teammate you wanted. But if you're a viewer just watching for the sake of it, and you maybe have a PlayStation, why not sign up for FRL? You can always check our Twitter, send a DM, or I think maybe in the YouTube comments usually there's a link. You should be, if you type in a comment, and we can get in contact with you. However, that is it. 57 minutes long. I will be saying goodbye, and we will see you on Monday for the F2 and F3 round 1 race in Bahrain, and the F1 stream will be on Tuesday. So look forward to seeing you for season 16.